Hi, and welcome to Living and Loving Each Day, Bridging Barriers. I'm so glad that you joined us today, and I'm starting off with a question. So the question is, why is your entrance, and it's called vertical circulation, so important? That's why we're here today, and we've got an amazing guest that's an expert in this area. So I just want to again welcome you, and just this is a podcast where we want to provide support and just expert opinions about how things can be more accessible to you out there, especially with the parents and adults who have adaptive needs, especially mobility issues. So this community, we just take the first steps in transforming challenges into opportunities. So that's why I'm just so pleased to have my guest with me today. And we're actually doing like a series. So this is Ron Wickman is with me today. He's an architect and he's a specialist in this area. And so we're going to talk today specifically. We did another podcast where we introduced all of the things to do with your entrance and to do with making your home accessible. But today we're specifically talking about your entrance, is what I was going to say. So, Ron Wickman, thank you so much for being here again. Thank you for. I just really appreciate all your advice and your expert opinions. So, introduce yourself again to everybody, and then let's go and talk about vertical entrances. That's our topic.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here, and again, just to add to everything you've said, I am an architect who grew up with a dad who used a wheelchair. So, um, in the '60s, '70s, accessibility in the built environment just really wasn't there. So, a great deal of challenges navigating the environment if you used a wheelchair. So that background of information really led me to want to take on this profession of architecture and specialize in it. And certainly once I got to the point where I was a licensed professional architect and was out there doing the work that I do on my own here, I realized that accessibility is not a hot topic for most designers. So I am trying to do my best to get the information out there to people so that they do better appreciate what they can, especially do with their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly our big challenge now is our boomer population and our rapidly growing aging population. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think we all know, or we should know, that people do want to stay in their house if they can. They've grown used to and accustomed to their environment, and they now they need to know what to do to maybe
Mm-hmm.
renovate or possibly um, move to a new residence that could be close to where they live, but something that is maybe a bit more accommodating for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the last time we spoke, we just talked at a high level in a general way about what I've recognized in the business that we really need to focus on. So that's obviously we need to be able to get into our homes with an accessible entrance. We need to think about how we might get from one level to another. So even in a bungalow, we
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to get down to the basement if we're in a wheelchair. And lastly, we want to make sure that we can be in a bathroom that will accommodate our needs.
Mm-hmm.
And what we find in general is when we tackle these three major concepts and we come up with the solutions, not only do the solutions help people who use wheelchairs, but they really help everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
again, um, nobody benefits from stairs. It's it's just they're just something that we've grown accustomed to, and they're almost everywhere. But in homes, we should recognize that we can build our homes without steps at our front door, at
Right.
least, right? And
Who's
in some
who's I was gonna say, whose idea was it to put the laundry in the basement? Like
laundry, yeah. All these sorts of things that we still, we still in many ways we design homes and build homes for, I guess, that 1950s family. And so now we find ourselves in situations where there's so much out there. There's so many different ways to live, and the industry just hasn't really caught up to the needs of the real needs of people out there, especially when it comes to talking about people with disabilities. And and just to be very, very clear, although I do talk a lot about people who use wheelchairs, when I talk about accessible design, I really am talking about being totally inclusive. So, in my mind, I'm thinking about everybody's challenges and needs in terms of their visual limitations, their potential hearing limitations, obviously physical, and in the world of even people who are aging, we have to think about cognitive limitations. So
Mm,
issues like dementia and
mhm.
Alzheimer's really do come up, and there are things that we can do that will make life easier and allow us to remain in our homes as long as we possibly can, and maybe till the end. And certainly, my own personal experience growing up in a house that was wheelchair accessible, although it was a 1967 design build. So, frankly, all we had were larger hallways. So my dad never really had the opportunity to, like,
Yeah.
even turn around in his bathroom. The kitchen wasn't accessible. Doors weren't even wider. So it just over time we kept adapting the home to meet his needs. And what I realized then, and I realize now, is that we can build so that people don't have to adapt to the
Right.
building. We can build so that the building easily adapts to the needs of the people who use it. Um,
Exactly.
so today we were going to just kind of focus a bit more on the details around this idea of getting into the house more easily and
Mhm.
safely. And then the other issue of getting between levels is something that can be part of our conversation today as well, because it's not something that we have to talk about for too long. There's
Mhm.
only a few solutions that can really work, and then in another podcast we can talk more in detail about bathroom design.
Mhm. Good.
So so my personal journey with the this idea of the no step entrance really started once I started my practice, and once again when I realized that there weren't a lot of other designers doing what I do, I realized that I had to do a lot of research on my own and reach out to people that were ahead of me in terms of their experience and knowledge, and that usually meant talking to people in the United States where much of the accessibility movement started with the
Mhm.
Americans with Disabilities Act.
Mhm.
And so I discovered this concept of what we call visitability. So
Yeah.
visitability. And that was started in the 80s uh, by a lady, Eleanor Smith, in Atlanta, who used a wheelchair, and
Mhm.
and she realized that, wow, I can't visit any of my friends because they have steps, and so she just came up with this idea that maybe we can at least make homes visitable.
Yeah.
And so from there, she talked about this concept of visitability, where at least somebody in a wheelchair could get in, they could get through the door, that so there's no steps at the front entrance. You can get in the door. It's wide enough to get through. And thirdly, there was a bathroom that at least you could use, get in and access, and be able to shut the door behind you. So
Right.
so when I realized that, again, I looked back at my own personal history, and you think about a day like today here in Edmonton. It's cold, it's icy, it's snowy. And whenever we went to visit my parents' friends, here it was, a scrawny little 12-year-old kid trying to help his dad get up the stairs.
Oh.
And he was just holding the wheels of his wheelchair as I pulled him up backwards up the stairs. And he was helping by just trying to gain traction with the wheels and kind of yanking on his wheels to help me
Mhm.
haul him up the stairs. And you look back at that, and that was just so so dangerous. And so, yeah, for the most part, people came. My parents' friends came to their house because it was so much easier for my dad.
Yeah.
And then once we were able to get my dad in the house, and luckily we never did have any serious mishaps. Um, then we'd stay for, more than one cup of coffee, for example. And then now my dad has to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
And so, often the reality of the situation was he would go down the hall of the house we were visiting. He could get to the door of the bathroom, but not inside,
Not through. Yeah.
not through. And literally, you give him a cup and he pees in the cup and somebody dumps it into the toilet.
Wow.
So this is my personal history,
Experience. Yeah.
experience in history, which is
And
just
and you're
not
and
good.
not good, and so many people had experienced that at the time. People don't even think about that, and
That's
that's
right.
why the things that are going on now, at least with your, your presentations and your teaching and everything that you're doing, we're bringing awareness to this. I can't
Correct.
I
Yeah.
feel so bad. I can just see you climbing up the stairs with this wheelchair,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
know how hard it is for me with wheelchairs for a 12-year-old, so I
well,
can't
and
imagine.
I'm not sure what was worse, trying to get him up and down the stairs or dumping his
Yeah.
cup full of pee in the toilet, right? So, so generally our visits were not very long, to friends' house. Where if friends came over to our house, um, my dad had the luxury of being able to go to the bathroom and just be comfortable at home. So that, that even today, that's the reality for a lot of people. A lot of people I know who use wheelchairs, uh, their family and friends don't have homes that they can easily visit, right? So it's kind of the onus is on the person with the disability to make their house as accommodating as possible, and then entertain friends and family in that way.
Mhm.
So so looking at that situation now in the 90s when I graduated from architecture school, and really sort of dug deep into, what really is the problem here, like why
Yeah.
aren't we seeing more of this. And like I think everybody else in the 80s and 90s, we were quick to pick on the builders, the new home builders, like just build this stuff. It's like it's dumb not to. It's not that expensive. Like, what's wrong with you? All that kind of stuff. And I said that then, and I don't say that anymore, because
Yeah.
I've learned that the home building industry, it's a tough one, and
Yeah.
people who build new homes on speculation are taking a huge risk in terms of what the buying public is looking for. So it's always kind of experimentation out there. Uh, but again, I would keep looking specifically at this issue of why do we have the stairs at the front door? And of course, in our environment, in most of all of Canada, really, we build with basements because we have permafrost, and we have to dig our foundations down at least 4 feet to get underneath
Mhm.
to get to soil that doesn't freeze and thaw. And in time we realized if you are going to go 4 feet down into the ground, why not go another 4 feet? And all of a sudden, you got this like free space below your main floor, which kind of doubles the size of your house, and you've got this basement. And then the history of the basement and how it gets raised to create the idea of bi-level homes or split level homes, so that
Mm.
we can get more windows in the basement to make our basement space feel a bit more luxurious and filled
Mhm.
with light and so on. So all of these things were being done as a way to direct the public to see what the potential is out there.
Mhm.
But for sure, in all of this, we never really truly thought about people, especially who used wheelchairs in all of this. So all of
No.
these solutions were created to kind of get the mass appeal, as opposed to really looking at people that are in different situations,
Mhm.
like people who use wheelchairs.
Yeah.
So, so definitely for those in the audience listening, um, don't try to buy a split level or bi-level home to renovate. It's a nightmare. So,
Yeah.
and if you own one, you're in for a big a big cost to try to make it accessible. So
Yeah.
right away, those kinds of homes are very, very tricky to deal with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so as I continued my journey and try to understand the situation better, I started looking at newer areas where we build new homes.
Mhm.
And what I came to realize is that the developers now who design and build the neighborhoods for the builders to then build their houses, they're designed to deal with our underground services,
Yes.
like sewer lines, water
Mhm.
lines, electrical lines, all that kind of stuff. And those will go down as far as they need to meet the building code
Yeah.
and literally make it work, right?
Mhm.
So
Mm.
they never go down further because the more you dig down, the more expensive it gets.
Right.
Um, and so what we find is that often once the builder gets a lot that has service lines that are a little bit higher, and then slopes in the land to manage water. That's the second big thing that developers think about is just
Mhm.
sculpting the land so that water can be managed effectively and get to the sewers and so on. By the time the builder gets the lot is in a place where it's really hard then to build a house without steps, and
Yeah.
that's why we end up building houses with steps.
Okay.
And while I'm talking about this topic, there is a development in Winnipeg called Bridgewater,
Okay.
and Bridgewater was originally designed to have at least 25% of the new homes built to be visitable.
Wow.
So right from the get-go, the civil engineers, the ones that are responsible for the underground service lines and the locations
Yeah.
and the sculpting of the land for water management, they designed the lots so that when the builders got the lot to build the house on, it was really easy
Yeah.
to have a no step entrance. And
Nice.
the feedback from the builders was that, yeah, this is great. It doesn't cost us more money. Everything is there for us to easily build something without steps.
Wow.
And so it's a unique situation uh, that was funded by the provincial government in many ways, and just didn't kind of make its way into the sort of free market that we're so used
Mhm.
to building under. So, here in Edmonton, working with developers and builders, you just don't see that very often.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
And do you think it's coming? Do you think it's like that awareness?
The
Uh,
awareness is coming. The results, I think, are still,
mm,
a little ways away. So
mhm.
it's still going to be a challenge to make it work.
Right.
Um, so I guess in reality, what I'm trying to express is that uh, it's not really the fault of any one industry or one
No.
kind of population. Uh, it's kind of up to everybody to have a greater awareness of how beneficial all of this can be.
Right.
So again, looking at my own house situation, which is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Um, I still live in a mature neighborhood in Edmonton,
Yeah.
and we just happened to have purchased our house in uh, the late 90s, 1990s, and in this area, Greenfield, the
Yeah.
Greenfield community on the south side. This just happened to be a show home street, and so there's a lot of different kind of styles of homes
Mhm.
and these beautiful elm trees, which is really nice. So it's just this kind of gorgeous little street in Greenfield
It is. Yeah.
that we just got lucky. The house that we wanted, we had our three kids. We really wanted a small bungalow, and more importantly, we needed something we could actually afford. so it was sort of like a perfect thing for us. And one of the very, very unique features of our house at that time, because it was built in the late 60s,
Wow.
is a front car garage. So on our street, there's three houses with front car garages. Um, just a block south of us are the more sort of, I guess you'd say, 80s style of development where there's cul-de-sacs and everybody now has a front car garage.
Yeah, well, that's yes.
Yeah.
They
So we
don't
were
wanna they didn't wanna walk outside and get cold taking their groceries
Sure.
from the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah. And that's the way a lot of people want their new homes when they go into newer areas. And again, just a block away there, they eliminated the lanes in the development. So in our neighborhood, we still have the back lanes.
Yeah.
It just happened that our particular lot wasn't really conducive to the backyard detached garage. So they threw a front car garage. Um, but what that meant in 2000, when we renovated our house to like add a second story to our bungalow,
Okay.
I re-poured the driveway, and now I had over 40 feet from the street to my front door, that I could re-pour my sidewalk to the front door as just a slope sidewalk.
Mm,
So we had 3 steps when the house was a bungalow, and we eliminated the steps in the renovation, and that allowed anybody in a wheelchair to get in the house. But more importantly, it allowed my dad to get into the house.
yeah.
And I think a lot of the grandparents out there, like myself now, uh, we really love our grandkids.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
it's kind of I get it now that I'm a grandpa myself,
Yeah,
but
you don't get it
you know,
until
I
it's
was
like
I
it's
was a
like
little bit I was a little bit envious that my dad completely lost his connection with me and just moved on to the grandkids. But I get it now.
yeah,
So it's great, and it really troubled me that he would often come by on a Saturday, and from his van he would phone our house, and my kids would answer because they knew Saturdays was the day that Pops went out to get treats. So
yes.
they would run out and get treat bags that he got for them, and then they would run back inside, and so my dad couldn't really experience the joy of watching them open their little gifts
Mhm.
that he got them. And yeah, for special events we would get these little mini ramps he carried in his van, and we'd have to help him up the stairs. And a little
Mhm.
easier than just doing the stairs, but again, it was never really felt right. Kind of
Mhm.
morally, or in human rights issues. Like nothing really felt right about it.
Yeah.
And I knew as an architect who does this kind of work, it's really not that hard to make it work. So we didn't sink our house into the ground. We didn't do anything, but we repoured our sidewalk. Um, and people have to be aware that not everybody in the industry has caught up to this understanding of the no step entrance. So, be leery of a builder or contractor that tells you, well, you can't have your sidewalk come up to your door because it doesn't meet the building code, or there's some other
Yeah,
reason it's super expensive, or
yeah,
uh, if they're telling you that, it's because they just don't want to do it. That's
exactly.
plain
Yeah,
and simple.
yeah.
Um, Now, having said that, I can tell you that my own experience working with even people who use wheelchairs, they often purposely design their house or do a renovation so that the entrance is at the back for them,
Yes.
and they keep the stairs at the front of their house
Yeah,
because they don't want to look like their house is accessible.
I
And
understand.
and
Yeah,
you probably understand that
yeah,
as well as anybody being in the real estate industry, and
exactly.
that troubles me because it's still a bad situation where somebody with a disability tries to hide the fact
Yeah.
that they have the disability.
No, I
And
agree.
I can't blame anybody, but I'd also say that every single time somebody's done that, they'll confide in me, many years later, saying, "Well, that was really kind of dumb. I shouldn't have done
Yeah.
that." And if I built another
Mhm.
house today, I would actually
Yeah,
have the no step entrance, right? So
right.
it is becoming more commonplace.
Yeah,
You're seeing it a bit more
yeah.
often. Um,
I'm also noticing now too as a realtor that they're building the garden suites or whatever you want, the loft homes, like, in the back with a 0 entry and an elevator. So it's,
yep,
and
yep,
it's right on the same lot. So what I find fascinating about that is that it's even if you don't have mobility issues right now, as we grow older and we might encounter that, then basically you could just move into your garden suite in the back and rent out your house. So there's a lot of really good ideas that are out there now.
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. So I mean, like, I think the big lesson here is to is to get people to appreciate and understand that they can have a house without steps at the entrance.
Right.
And I should make sure I caveat that with the idea that there are in renovation work and sometimes in new construction, when you're doing like a lot of infill housing in
Hmm.
new construction, circumstances don't always allow you to always make the front entrance the accessible entrance.
Right.
So so don't feel like you have to do it that way.
Hmm.
There's other ways. I did a house in the university area where there are a few steps to the front door, but the sidewalk leading to the front door veered off to the side, like went to the straight to the stairs, but also another sidewalk portion that veered off to the side and then went to a side door, and that was all accessible. So that was
Good.
a wheelchair accessible pathway, and then you got in through the side. Uh,
Awesome.
and the other thing that I think people are being a bit more open-minded to is, it's interesting because my mom still lives in the house I grew up in, and the neighbor beside just built a new infill home, a two-story home that is completely accessible and adaptable to future needs. And what they did is, they at the front yard, we designed the sidewalk so that it basically slopes. Slopes up, then it goes to the side, and then back up to the door. So you can do things with your landscaping. So
Hmm.
it's not in the end of the day, it's not like a big dumb ramp in front of your
Good.
house. It's just a
Good.
nice gentle sidewalk. Then you landscape around that, and it looks like part of your landscape.
Hmm.
And we recently repoured the front sidewalk at my mom's house, so it's the same thing. So here's a great example where you see two houses right beside each other that are doing the same technique to get that visitability and that easy access.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad that there's options now. Like, I don't think in the '60s, when you had to take your dad up and, pull him up by yourself up the stairs, those options weren't out there, and there was no, but even I don't think even considering it, it doesn't seem like it. But I'm so glad that
No,
you're doing this now, and that we do have options. So people, you do know to contact people like Ron, who can, give you these other examples and how you can go about making your home both visitable and accessible. So
yeah.
that's why, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And maybe just before we close for this session, just to talk about once you're inside the house.
yeah,
So again, the bottom line for the entrance is that get to know and understand as much as you can how these things get done, because then you can talk to your builder or your friends and family even, but you can just talk more about what you want and know
mhm,
that it can be done and it's not expensive. And it just means that people have to think a little bit differently, and it'll come,
yeah,
but it's still, these things take time.
yeah,
So again, you once you're in the house, and again, as we've spoken about before, not just people in wheelchairs can get into your house, but now the parents of little children can easily push
stroller.
the stroller
Mhm,
into the house. People with bikes, people moving furniture, getting your washer and dryer delivered just
mhm,
makes life so much easier.
mhm.
uh, Now, if your washer and dryer are in the basement of your house, then they have to get that stuff down into the basement.
Yeah, that's
And
another show, that's another show.
yeah, well, just quickly about that. Um, and this is hard in a renovation to add an elevator to an existing house, but in new design, people should really think about designing into the new house a space where the elevator would go. So
Mhm,
you can literally build a elevator shaft
mhm,
that could serve as a closet space that would be in your basement and your main
mhm,
floor with a bungalow, or on the second floor in a two-story house. And that shaft automatically gets used as storage space and can easily be adapted to house the elevator should that ever
mhm,
be needed in the future.
mhm.
And uh, I think I mentioned in the last podcast that the elevators are one of these products that, really haven't gone up in price since I've started my career in the 90s. So
Mhm.
they were around, $25,000 in those days. You can get them at that cost. The unique thing about elevators today is you can, much like buying cars now, you can shop around.
Yeah.
And if you want to get the really high end elevator with the Muzak playing and and all the rest, and
Yeah.
really nicely finished inside and everything, lighting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can pay like $35,000 or $40,000 if you want, but you have options now.
Yeah.
And the trades, the building trades understand how these things get built, and so everything's a lot easier. So
Yeah.
you really should consider that when you're building new, that this
Mhm.
elevator shaft, uh, not only, um, you can think of it as not only helping you potentially in the future, but in the immediate, it helps you entertain family and
Mhm.
friends who might be using wheelchairs. It's great for moving furniture,
Mhm.
um, and I would like to argue that it's not a huge added expense
Mhm.
to a house build these days. You can
Yeah.
spend a lot. You can spend a lot of money just on your decision on flooring, for example.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's whether we make it a priority for us or not. And
Yes.
I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the general public out there still has a kind of negative view of what an accessible house is.
Mhm. So we
And
wanna change their mind. That's why we're here.
we want to prove to them that not only is it economical
Mhm.
and has good resale value, it can be absolutely beautiful. And
Mhm.
and so
Exactly.
we just really, the only way to show that is to get them built, right? And
Yeah.
show really good examples of what these houses can look like, and
Exactly.
and
Yes.
get that information out to people.
I love doing open houses when that's the case, so I can just really show people. Yeah, I was at one show home or home show a few years ago, and they had that elevator that looks, if you're a Star Trek fan, it looked like a tube, and it went from the downstairs up to the primary bedroom. But
Right.
it just reminded me of Beam Me Up, Scotty. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're it was so, and it looked gorgeous. I mean, it was just fit. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just big enough for the wheelchair to go straight up to the bedroom and then easy access. And that's what we
Yeah.
want it to be, is just, easier for people to be accessible, right?
Yeah, easy, straightforward, easy to
Mhm.
understand, easy to accept as something that, is just part of your house.
Mhm.
Just like we in our house, we need doors and windows and all that
Exactly.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't have to agonize about the
No,
decisions that
no.
would ultimately make our lives easier. So I think for myself, I'm of the age, I guess they call us well, I'm still part of the boomer population, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, in this sandwich generation, they
Yeah.
say, right? So I've got kids. They're adult kids now. I have grandkids, but I have an aging mom that I have to help take care of. So there's a lot of attention that I need to
Mhm.
give to family. And the generation ahead of me, like my mom, fiercely independent, don't always look to help from others, and
Mhm.
they, even as they age, they kind of fight that, right?
It's
And
true, especially the baby boomers.
yeah, you probably know that well too.
Yes, I do.
And so you say, like, well, put a grab bar beside your toilet in the bathroom. Oh, I don't want to do that. Like, what would the neighbors say? They're going to think I'm
Exactly.
I'm disabled. And it's funny that my mom was married to a guy in a wheelchair, and she's like that now. I'm like, Mom, you kind of really need a walker right now to. Oh, I can't be seen in public with a walker. That What will people think of me? I'm like,
Oh,
well, you were with your husband, and you didn't seem to mind when he was sitting in a wheelchair. So it's funny, the attitudes, right?
it
And
is.
but then I look at my kids, and they'll accept anything that they know will make their life easier. So
Yeah,
I think
100%,
that
100%.
the generation coming up will be totally accepting of these features that they know will just make their life easier. And they'll not only will they accept it, they'll demand it. And so I think
Exactly.
a progressive builder is one that is really kind of have their finger on the pulse of the market right now, and it's not really showing, but it's going to be a big thing in the coming future. And
Mhm.
so I think we have to be ready for it. And I kind of, with my experience and at my age, I'm just trying to get the information out there, right? So people can hopefully tap into it.
Exactly. That's why we are here. That is why we are here, just to get this word out and to bring it the awareness. Whether you need it today or not, somebody in your family is going to need these adaptive, things that are going in play now that you can take advantage of. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, this is a short series with Ron Wickman. And today we're talking about entrances and a little bit more than that, but we did go deeper. That's what I wanted to do today in this series. We want to not just touch on it, but go a little deeper. Now, next time we hear from Ron, we're talking specifically, Ron, about the bathrooms. Is that
Right,
correct?
right.
Yes.
About accessible bathrooms, correct.
Accessible bathrooms. So we want to really dig there and just, give you information that you're going to need, or that is really important to have. So we're all mindful of these things that we have to be considerate of. So everyone, thank you so much for joining me, Ron. Again, a wonderful guest. I really appreciate you very much. And thank you very much for joining us today, and see you on
Thanks.
series number 3 of this series. See you soon. Bye.